It's Sunday morning, so it must be time for Not Your Normal Sunday Morning Show. And Wayne Steiger and I were just discussing some of the inexplicable, amazing things that are taking place that can only be described as evidence and manifestations of some kind of a spiritual power, whether it comes from above, beyond, within. I'm not sure, Wayne, but even in the midst of all of the upheaval and even in the midst of all the things that seem to be going wrong, when it seems like Murphy's Law is in full effect, what can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible moment, yet it still seems like hope, optimism, and divine intervention, whether it's our own manifested or from other beings, it seems like it's still alive and well. And I'm just not ready to give up hope yet, Wayne.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing of our species, Jeff, is that, it's something that seems to be uniquely human. Hope. I don't know if animals have hope. I don't know, but I do know that our species demonstrates that even in the midst of catastrophe, you'll find those among us who will always see the ray of sunshine, the positive side to even the worst of a situation.
And frankly, that's me. I'm the last of the great optimists. It doesn't matter how bad it is, I can find the silver lining on any cloud. But it's interesting when you talked about animals, animals are governed by instinct. And I wonder when we evolved or when we changed whatever we did to move from instinct or away from instinct, did we replace that with hope?
I don't know. It's odd that you mention wildlife. So I was out last night in the backyard with the telescope and what have you, and there are 2 new bunny rabbits.
Oh, nice.
And their mother has been here. I've taken care of her and what have you, but it was really interesting because here I am setting up the telescope and these 2 wild bunnies are literally 2 feet from me.
Are they wascally rabbits?
They are. They're wascally rabbits. They're cute as ever. And they did not run. They didn't, they just went ahead and kept on eating the grass, and it's very interesting.
Wayne, I think that's evidence that, and not to blow, air up your skirt or anything, not that you wear a skirt, but I think that's definitely evidence that you are in a vibration that is in harmony with Mother Earth. I think that you're in a vibration that's in harmony with nature. I think you're just in a good vibration that's in harmony with with the cosmos, because those animals are highly instinctive and they pick up on it, and they have absolutely no fear that you're going to pull out a gun or a net or a club. They know that you mean them no harm. And, we talk about the lion lying down with the lamb, or now it's the wolf lying down with the lamb. We won't get too deep into the Mandela effect, but, that's talked about. So it's something that we don't have to wait for the sweet by and by up in the sky after we die. We can apply these things right now while we're still around down here on the ground.
Yeah. What's your thought on, when we talk about mankind and then we talk about the other kingdoms, the plant kingdom,
right,
the animal kingdom, Bible lore tells of a time apparently before sin entered in where man was in perfect harmony with the animal kingdom, with the plant kingdom, and because of the sin, as the lore goes, then that communication, that bridge was lost. I'm curious, do you think that it can ever be reestablished, species to species, kingdom to kingdom?
Well, Wayne, you're a great student of ancient lores and creation myths and epic stories, and of course all manner of religious and
you humble
stuff. And they all seem to mention that. They all seem to mention a time of, to borrow a biblical term, of Edenic splendor, and they all seem to point to one that will come again. And again, I'm the eternal optimist, and I think that what we're probably going to see is 2 rivers flowing in different directions. We're going to see one where it's flowing to hell in a handbasket, and we're going to see one where it's flowing towards that peace, towards that harmony. And I don't know if there's going to be a cataclysmic event. I don't know if it's going to be a slow, gradual change. I have a vision and a thought of a of a collapsing of dimensions, of a flattening of all these dimensions into one. And I think that the people that are ready are going to go into that place of bliss, nirvana, peace, harmony, whatever you want to call it, with all of creation. And I think the people that aren't ready, whether they're going to be reset or whether they're going to be ground into powder and used to fertilize the next go round, I'm not really sure, but I know which end of that spectrum I want to be on.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. The mysteries that what lie beyond, I don't know if I sometimes think that the answer lies right in front of us. We just have a very difficult time seeing it.
And we have to admit that the Bible, I think, talks about that with hope. If, again, you know how I feel about the Bible. It's, it's written by men. Some of it's great. Some of it is something else. But, there are a lot of encoded, a lot of encrypted, great truths there. And that's one of them, that, there is a time of peace and hope and harmony that can and will come if we do our parts.
Yeah, it's odd that we're talking about this, because I was in the kitchen earlier and I was thinking, today it seems like we are so divided. I mean, the political rhetoric is, I have never seen at a time like that. But then something stopped me and said, well, now consider 1968. Now, I was
McGovern, Goldwater.
Yeah, Chicago, Mayor Daley. We had Selma, Alabama. We had the SLA. And I stopped and I thought to myself, whoa, wait a minute. The SLA, Student Liberation Army, they were going around the whole country setting off bombs.
They were.
We had Selma, Alabama.
I thought they were called the Symbionese Liberation Army.
No, this is going back. This was Berkeley. This was the Black Panthers. This was the student uprising. It was a very radical time in this country. And I was thinking, I'm going, well, now, wait a minute. I don't see Compton on fire. I don't see Birmingham on fire. I don't see Atlanta on fire. We lived through that.
Mm-hmm. And your analogy, Wayne, in the 68, you had all the, the burning and the craziness. And you also had, Paul, George, Ringo, and John singing high 432 music, bringing people together. You had the original lovable rebel Elvis out of the movie years coming back into his prime. So there was a lot of good stuff going on as well. We had like those two confluent, those rivers going in different directions.
Yeah. And somehow we survived all that. Now, I don't know if it was a precursor to something yet. I don't know. But we did. We survived it.
Do you think we're going to survive this?
I don't know. The one factor that you have to add into that equation, in 1968, I looked into it, there was approximately estimated about 4 billion people.
Right.
All right. Today, it's estimated to be 7.5 billion people. So I don't know. I know attitudes have changed. We didn't have technology. I mean, could you imagine if we had 24/7 news back then? And maybe that, I think that's what's driving us crazy, is that there's no downtime. At least back then we had common sense with television, that at midnight, no matter where you were, FCC rules, you cut the switch.
Yeah.
Nothing was on.
Wayne, I had Magenta Pixie on my channel not too long ago, a couple times. She's going to come back. And her and I are working very closely together to try to do what we can to bridge the gap between what we would call the New Age community and the truther community. And this thought just dropped into my mind. I'm not sure from where, but is there any possibility, Wayne, of, especially given our backgrounds, is there any possibility to reach across the divide and be able to have some type of discourse with those that are still in the Abrahamic faiths, or are we just too far separated to be able to, is that aisle too wide to reach across?
Yeah, boy. I think, I love the idea. I think that there are those who are ready for it. Interesting that you say that. Pew Religious Surveys this week did a survey on the nuns, NONES, and that's what they call us now. And because you have to classify us, you know, and they began this survey. Barna followed up with this, and they asked the nuns, why did you leave Christianity? And you know what the number one response was?
No.
They did not have the answers.
Ooh, interesting. And, you know, it has to be said, there's a lot of people within the churches that are good people. They're moral people. They're trying to love their kids just like we love our kids. They're trying to love their spouses just like we love our spouses. And many of them, you know, love their country, love the world. They see things in a much different and through a much different lens than we do. But there's a lot of things that divide us. But I'm just wondering if there might be enough things that unite us to where we can at least be civil. And this coming from the artist formerly known as the Christian Whistleblower.
I don't know. I've been reading this document called the Sectarium Omega. Have you read that?
I have not.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I'm doing a show on it. And it's an interesting document. It's from a Jesuit who basically left. I think he may have left permanently because when the Jesuit orders, particularly if you're of the SIV, and you start talking, you're not going to be talking very long.
No.
Yeah, most people don't know what the SIV is. It's the intelligence agency of the Vatican. More powerful than the CIA, believe it or not. And
better funded, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And they're at the same level of NATO of cosmic top secret. Now, a lot of people don't realize that there is a term, it's the highest security clearance you can get in NATO, called cosmic top secret.
Wow.
Now, I'll just be very short and just tell you, because it answers to the point that what we were just talking about. So this deals with Bishop John McIntyre and Pope Pius the 12th. And here's the deal. There was a meeting of an alien delegation. It did not take place in Mexico. It took place in California, which is now Edwards Air Force Base.
Hello, Heidi Vandenberg.
Hi, Heidi. Hello, everyone, by the way. Thank you. So Bishop McIntyre attended this meeting with President Eisenhower at President Eisenhower's request, by the way, because it turns out President Eisenhower struggled with the spirituality of the situation.
Eisenhower struggled with the spirituality?
Yes. Remember, he was the Supreme Allied Commander. His belief was that God delivered the Axis powers into, the Allies' hands. And,
you know what? I've never heard that. That's fascinating.
Yes. And in fact, I'm going to be inviting Laura back on the show again. But so Bishop McIntyre, when this meeting took place, they could not use regular cameras. You know, back then they had Panavision. These were large cameras that had engines, motors that literally ran. They didn't need any human intervention. The cameras wouldn't work around the alien spacecraft.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so they had to use manual 16 millimeter cameras. And the problem with that is that they only held 3 minutes of film.
Oh my.
And so this 20-minute meeting that took place, it really hit Bishop McIntyre. And so he made a point, and there was a very famous Hollywood actor who gave the bishop his private plane to get to the Pope. People don't realize in 1954, when this took place, we don't have what we do today. To get to Europe was a big deal.
Right.
So as Bishop McIntyre was on his way to New York, the plane developed engine problem, and they had to land in Las Vegas at a runway called, of all places, Sky Heaven.
Oh my.
While the bishop was there and was waiting in the terminal, it took about an hour and a half to fix the plane. A military man showed up, Colonel, United States Air Force, and sat down with the bishop. Now, everyone that attended this meeting with this delegation from space, they all had to swear a solemn oath. And so the colonel, he was a full bird, met with Bishop McIntyre and said, "We're reminding you of your oath." And Bishop McIntyre said, "But I must tell you, I have an oath to the Holy See, which is greater than any oath that I have sworn to."
Which is the Pope, right?
Yes, yes. I'm glad you see, you know your Catholicism. And so the colonel said, "Well, here's the deal. We're suspicious of what the intent really is here. We think that if you go to the Vatican and tell the Holy See that what took place, this is going to make things complicated." He left basically with a veiled threat, telling the Bishop John McIntyre that there would be a price to be paid should he break his oath. Well, long story short, Bishop McIntyre did in fact meet with Pope Pius XII. That's when the SIV was brought forth. And it was really interesting to read what Pope Pius's position was when he found out that there were aliens. Now,
Wow. That gave me chills, Wayne.
Yeah. Folks, I mean, it's the same thing here. I've been sitting on this for 4 days. And as it goes, and I'll just back this up. Anyone can do the research. Jeff, why was the Second Vatican Council II formed?
I don't know, but if you ever wanted to have me on with Laura, I'd be happy to do it.
All right, good. Maybe we'll do a conference on that. I love that. So the Second Vatican Council II was formed specifically to deal with what they felt was eventually going to be the intimate contact.
Really? And this was early 70s, 80s? When was it?
The 1970s, late 70s.
Yeah.
Yep. They were wrestling with it. So let me just put this in so we have a number of popes involved in this. We have Pope John the 23rd. We have Pope John Paul II. We have Pope Racius. Who was the guy that was in between there?
I don't know my Catholicism that well, Wayne.
Yeah. Anyway, they were all in on this. They made a pact. And come to find out, Pope Pius XII was right. The original delegation turned on Eisenhower. And that was the infamous July 7th flyover of Washington, D.C. when the threat was made. Anyone go there, check out anything you want to see in the headlines. That's when the fleet of UFOs buzzed the White House and the Capitol building repeatedly.
Third Reich aircraft?
Saucers.
Third Reich aircraft?
Saucers.
Extra otherworldly aircraft,
yes.
Not German.
Now this was a message delivered to. Now, it was Pope John the 12th that found out from Pope Pius the 12th that, oh God, this is deep. There is a planet heading this way, and unfortunately it's inhabited, and it is inhabited with a warlike species. Pope Pius was met with what they called the Nordic delegation.
You wonder where Gene Roddenberry came up with the Klingons.
Yes.
The Romulans.
This is, folks, this I've been saying all along, we've had full disclosure. They've done it in a way, they've made it into disinformation that, you see it, but you're not going to believe it.
Right.
So the Vatican started getting involved in serious space probes. They got involved with a project called Project Probe Shalom.
Peace probe.
Yes, they sent the probe was built by Lockheed Martin and was put on a test rocket called Aurora.
Wow.
Today, folks, we know about Aurora. It's a new propulsion system.
Yeah.
It went out. Yeah.
I'm thinking about what was the satellite they sent out that had, the 4 seasons on it, the Verity tuning.
Yeah, Voyager
432.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well,
we're either really trying to impress somebody or we're scared.
We're scared as crap, buddy. Let me tell you, we got good reason to be. So they did not have the coordinates for this system. They took a wild best guess. Now, the Vatican funded this for NASA. It didn't come out of NASA's budget, the United States budget, or the UN. This was the Vatican. So Probe Shalom basically had a trajectory where they thought would be within, they were hoping 50-50 was basically the odds that they had when they shot this thing out. The thing went off in 1990. 5 years this thing went out. It found it.
It found it?
They found the signal.
Oh my.
It came back and we got the download starting in early 2000. And so this is the deal. The Nordic delegation, Pope John the 23rd really hoped that they believed in God. They came, and this is the interesting thing. They said that they were seeking the divine.
The Nordic?
The Nordic delegation. And they said that they found the message of the divine in the Christos message.
Interesting.
Isn't it, though? But they would not, and they do not believe in God. They do not believe in the Savior. And this was the splitting point. This is
not original sin. They're not part of the sin, Savior, salvation matrix.
No. Now, there is the thing.
Aliens, Wayne, does that make us aliens?
Actually, we are. When you think about others who would look at us.
Yeah.
And, there's been a theological debate within the Vatican as to life. They know, in fact, this was really interesting. When Pope John Paul made his message, when he was pontified, he said in this message, there are voices from heaven that we knew not and were unknown. And though we know them not, we consider them to be brethren in the hope of the glory of our Lord Savior, Jesus Christ.
Wow. Wayne, do you really think the Catholics believe that they're going to be able to save aliens?
No. I think initially I think that the Vatican really did feel that this was a unified effort.
Are there really people within the Vatican that believe that their message is the true message of the Christ, or do they know they're running a fear and guilt control matrix?
Yeah, I think they know the gig is up.
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Pardon?
I said, in my opinion.
Yes. Is it all opinion?
Yeah, it's all opinion. It really is at the end of the day.
So the interesting thing is we all thought, and as the rumors went around, that there was a telescope that the Vatican had ownership down in Arizona, run by the University of Arizona.
Telescope?
Yes. The binocular, blah, 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 says for Lucifer. That's a ruse, folks. They actually are paying for that. The real one, the one that they have been focusing in on, guess where that puppy's at? Up in Alaska.
No kidding.
It's in a complex that has been disguised as an industrial complex.
So it's classic diversion. Hey, look at this over here, but the real thing's up here.
The real thing is up there. And the Jesuit, that turncoat, his job was to translate the astronomical data to the SIV. And when he started seeing the data, he got scared. I think whether he got scared, whether he had a moment of remorse for the human race, I don't know. But this is where the story leads us to today. And you can see today that this Pope in office today has basically made very much the same declaration. He has said that there is life outside of this. He said God would not just create us. Apparently, he has also made statements of such that we need to be prepared for this eventual reality.
Wow.
And I'm using that word myself, reality. So, yeah.
Now, someone in the chat room is, I don't know if they're asking or stating, but they're saying that the telescope in Alaska is also networked or linked up with a scope in space. Have you heard that?
Oh yeah, yeah. They've got the probes out there. The thing that I did not realize. I mean, you have companies like IBM. You got companies Lockheed Martin. You have a lot of other defense quasi space companies out there that work with the Vatican.
Yeah.
It's almost as if the Vatican has its own space division, in which I have not heard that officially, but I think that they do.
And somebody asked, is CERN connected to this in any way?
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, that was Sarah Kay asking that.
When Pope Pius found out that the guys that the race that came here to meet with Eisenhower, they are a warlike. They live on this planet, this system that's coming in. They've been here before.
So if they're warlike, Wayne, why would they even meet with us?
Well, if you look at this, we've populated a lot. I mean, you think about it. If you were on some other planet that had, I don't know, even a 500-year orbit, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to admit that when you left and you arrived today, you'd go, what the hell? What happened? They changed the neighborhood. There's a lot more. Look at the political structures. 500 years ago, the United States didn't exist.
That's amazing. Yeah. So do you think they're here just doing reconnaissance, or do you think they really have any desire to be peaceful with us?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I don't know if these are the Anunnaki. Rex does a lot of good shows on that.
Rex Bear, Leak Project.
Yeah. And, listen, they reference Stitchen's work. Now, I found that interesting because they found the same flaws that many of us have found as well. But yet, I think Stitchen had the foundation of a theory that is probably going to be proven out to be more correct than assumption.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. But my question is, if obviously President Eisenhower was a brilliant military strategist.
He was.
So why would he take a meeting with an aggressive race if he didn't feel like there was any chance of brokering peace?
Well, I don't think they did. They came bearing gifts. They were not known. No, they came. It was a false premise. I mean, they came exchanging technology for whatever the terms and conditions that they were looking for.
So they duped Eisenhower.
Yeah. And to back this up, all one has to do is do a military history. Look what happened from 1955 to 1970. In fact, it's more remarkable that you think in 5 years, we went from just understanding rocket engines with Robert Oppenheimer, the fact that we got the famous Nazi, which apparently this guy was already well-versed with alien technology.
And I forget his name now.
I think it's
von Braun. Right?
Yeah.
Werner von Braun.
Yep. So we went from basically propeller piston propulsion to where now we're using complex chemicals to now boost engines up.
Somebody makes a great comment. Gravity Storm Deborah says Trojan spaceships.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. And listen, we never realized it. It shows you how gullible people are, because when the UFO encounter over Washington D.C., and go and look at the headlines, you can see the Washington Post, it's there. That the American people were already buzzed about UFOs.
Yeah.
There were aliens everywhere.
Yeah.
They were everywhere.
Robert, USN vet, third generation, says he worked in commercial nuclear power for 30 years, and that technology was not created by men with slide rules.
That he is an absolute right. It's fact. The thing that when we broke the atom, when we realized that could happen, that changed the whole game. Now, that is why I think that the races, it's much like Gene Roddenberry did in First Contact with Star Trek: The Next Generation movie.
That was a great movie.
Yep. And because why? They broke the warp barrier. Now, we broke the atomic barrier, and we've pushed on from then. I do believe intelligence exists. I do believe that there are greater civilizations, class 1, class 2, that are above us, that signals something. If you came here before on a planet, a system, and now you're coming back 3,000 or 4,000 years later, we've gone from basically in thoughts of most people, dragging our knuckles to where now we're doing space shots. We have quantum computing. I don't think a lot of people stop and think about how attractive an alien race could be in our technology. I mean, people, when I find out when we're doing DNA quantum computing, we're taking DNA and now injecting it into a quantum matrix. Do you know the United Kingdom has now okayed GMO babies? So now you don't even have to be pregnant. We can get your kid in the lab. We can get you exactly what you want. You want blonde hair, blue eyes, perfect teeth, perfect hearing, 2015 vision. I mean, this is where we're at. And I think that if an alien civilization was watching us, at some point in time, you've got to say what's going on. Now, getting back to...
Or are they, Wayne, are they saying, holy crap, here's a bunch of 5-year-olds with automatic weapons?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're thinking. Yeah. And so the Sectarum Omega was a pact that was initially between these aliens, and this is where the term Planet X came up. The Vatican adapted it because it was already out there. And they refer to it more as Herculopum. It's a nemesis, is what the Vatican sees the term being, nemesis.
Now let's go back to these soulless or these GMO babies. Will these be soulless babies?
I think we're seeing it, brother. I think we're seeing it.
That came from Gary Baxter.
I think we're in the Nephilim time. I think we are in, if there was an incursion of our species from another species, then we have tripped that wire, so to speak.
What better way to infiltrate a society than to infiltrate it to the point of you don't know who's for you and who's against you?
Yeah. I mean, it shows that video I did, God shows up, what happens next? Armageddon.
Yeah.
Now, so I guess that it becomes the real problem. How do you make disclosure now? I think
what's left to disclose?
Well, I think that's the problem, that as you just said, you don't know if we're coming or going. You don't know what to believe. If they had made, and as I understand, it was Robert, who was our defense secretary, Kennedy
McNamara?
administration, McNamara. Thank you. His decision, because Kennedy wanted to bring this out. He wanted to bring out the fact that the Eisenhower, in fact, it started when Truman just, he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
When they told him he could not handle it. And the powers to be in Washington, D.C. knew they had a problem. And they had to go to the only source that they knew that the American people, Democrat, Republican, Independent, there weren't many independents in the 50s and the 40s, that they would immediately obey. And that's General Eisenhower.
Yep. I like Ike. Everybody liked Ike.
Yeah. And Eisenhower was our man. The Democrats knew it. The Republicans knew it.
Yeah.
But even he wanted to know, particularly from Pope Pius, was this: how do we deal with these creatures spiritually?
Was Eisenhower Catholic?
I believe he was.
Interesting. I wonder what would have happened if they had to deal with General Patton instead.
That's a good question. That's a fun one to just simply do the imagination on that. I think Patton would have given him
like a good novel right there.
You know what, Jeff? That could really be a great story. You think about this. In an alternate reality, I'm sure that Patton may have been the guy.
He could have very well been. He was extremely popular.
Oh yeah,
Trump-esque if you think about it.
Yeah, but they killed him, so the only thing they had left was Eisenhower. But still, I think Patton would have said, "Let's go to war."
You know, Wayne, it's funny every now and then when someone stumbles in, not knowing where they are or what they've arrived in, and somebody stumbled in and made this comment that says, "You might want to study the Apostle Paul, the Roman duped of the way." That's funny.
Yeah.
Good idea.
No, I think you should, Jeff. I think you should do that. You need to study the Apostle Paul, write something about it.
Yeah, I think I will.
Yeah, write something about it. So, we never stop and think about the alien equation, the spirituality side of this thing. And I think that the biggest disappointment with Pope Pius was the fact when he found out that they really didn't believe.
Wow.
Now,
but yet they're looking for the message of the Christos.
Yes, they were looking for, and in fact, that's the word they used. And the Nordics, when they came, was that they liked the message of the divine of the Christos.
Do you remember, Wayne, when I talked about several months ago that going into John chapter 1, that every being that enters into this system gets a download of that Christos message, and that at some point some of them are going to say, you know what, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Maybe it's already happened.
Maybe it has. I mean, I think what a lot of people get mixed up on is that a religion was formed around the message.
Yeah.
That was the problem. The message is beautiful. It's just that, it was hijacked.
It was, and it literally was hijacked.
It literally was.
By that guy somebody just mentioned.
Yeah. In fact, I was reading in one of my books here recently, the comparison to Paul and Peter.
Yeah.
And, that whole situation as, could those two cats really have ever gotten along? Hell no. No. Big egos there.
Yeah.
And, it was, and the guy was writing just on as a commentary, what that meeting would have been like. Here you got the one cat that actually walked with the real dude, supposedly.
Yeah.
And you got the guy who saw the alien vision on the road. And now who's going to be the chief honcho?
That's it.
Yeah. And the rest is history.
The rest is history. And Wayne, you know what? Since we got this hard break, this might be a good time to just cut things off.
Let's do that. I know you have something you need to go to, so you and Sandra. So we'll see you next Sunday, my friend.
And before we do that, Wayne, tell people where they can reach you and tell us what you got coming up for the next week.
R. Wayne Steiger over on YouTube. Tomorrow, the physicist and philosopher, and with our Dr. Claudia Albers. And I'm going to be doing a video on this sectarium Omega.
Sounds exciting.
It really is. What you got going this week?
Well, later on today, 3 o'clock this afternoon, I've got Derek Brose, the Global Witness, back with me. We're going to have Jay Campbell for an amazing last stand on tomorrow, time permitting. He's on his way to Mexico. And then we've got Raj Wiseman, the author of the Baba G book, coming up. Hopefully that's a roundtable with Robert Stanley, Jay Campbell, maybe yourself, maybe Rex. The more the merrier. We're going to try to put that all together.
Let me know.
Lots of really exciting stuff. And I feel like, Wayne, I'm about to go to another level. So hopefully we're going to get some more revelation dropping in. And I know things are tough, but I also think there's a corollary to that of blessing, if you want to call it that, information, if you want to call it that, downloads. And of course, we'll have Magenta Pixie coming back to talk about her latest book as soon as I finish the thing.
And let me just add something. I've really gotten into weightlifting. Used to do it a lot, gotten back into it now. And the point that I want to make out, I think it's healthy for us to have tough times because it keeps us sharp.
I never thought I would quote Robert Schuller, but he did say, tough times never last, but tough people do.
Woo! I'll tell you what, now that brings back some memories. When you said that, I'm seeing him standing up there with that crystal cathedral.
Yes. I used to call it crystal monstrosity.
Yes. And now the Catholics own it.
I didn't know the Catholics own that now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They had to basically foreclose on it, went in disrepair. And so
Isn't that something?
Isn't that weird?
Well, Wayne, until next week, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Don't be a stranger to the rest of you. I salute you for being here, seeking after truth, love and light to you all. Wayne, thanks so much for being with us and making everybody Sunday morning.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
Take care now. Bye-bye.